The stars looked different now. Captain Elena Vasquez stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance and watched the tactical display show red dots everywhere. Each red dot was an enemy ship. Each one wanted her dead. 3 years ago, humanity had controlled 200 star systems. Now they controlled none. The war was over and humanity had lost. But nobody told the remaining human ships to stop fighting. Elena touched the metal rail in front of her. The Defiance was old. She had fought in 12 major battles and countless smaller ones. Her hull was scarred with weapon marks. Her engines made strange noises. But she still flew and her weapons still fired. "Captain, incoming message from Admiral Chen," said Communications Officer Torres. He was young, maybe 25. Most of the older crew had died in the earlier battles. "Put it on screen," Elena said. Admiral Chen appeared on the main display. He looked tired. They all looked tired these days. Behind him, Elena could see the bridge of his flagship, the UES Determination. It was the last dreadnought humanity had left. "Captains," Chen began. Elena knew he was talking to all 12 remaining ships at once. "I will not lie to you. This is our final mission. We are going to attack the Hegemony Command Center on Dominion Prime." Elena felt her stomach tighten. Dominion Prime was the most defended planet in known space. 7 alien species had joined together to form the Hegemony. Their combined fleets had crushed humanity's defenses like an insect under a boot, and now 12 damaged ships were going to attack their home base. "The target is their Central Command Nexus," Chen continued. "Intelligence says it coordinates all Hegemony military operations. If we destroy it, their alliance might fall apart. Our people hiding in the outer systems will have a chance to escape." Elena looked around her bridge. Her crew was listening carefully. They knew what this meant. Nobody was coming back from this mission. "I will not order anyone to come with us," Chen said. "Any ship that wants to leave can go now. No one will think less of you." Elena waited. On her tactical display, she could see the other 11 ships. None of them moved. None of them left. "Very well," Chen said after a long pause. "We jump in 30 minutes. Make your peace with whatever gods you believe in. And remember, humans do not die quietly." The transmission ended. Elena turned to face her crew. There were 43 people on the Defiance. 3 years ago, there had been 850. Disease, battle damage, and accidents had taken the rest. "You heard the Admiral?" Elena said. "Anyone who wants to leave can take a shuttle to one of the other ships. They might drop you off somewhere safe." Nobody moved. Elena was not surprised. These people had already chosen to die fighting rather than live as prisoners. Chief Engineer Martinez spoke first. "Captain, the Defiance has been my home for 15 years. I am not leaving her now." Navigator Singh nodded. "My family died when Earth fell. The Hegemony killed them all. I want to make them pay." One by one, the crew voiced their agreement. Elena felt proud and sad at the same time. These were good people. They deserved better than to die in a hopeless attack on an impossible target. But they were right about one thing. Humanity had to make the Hegemony pay. Elena walked to her captain's chair and sat down. The command console showed her everything about the ship. Life support was working but unstable. Weapons were at 70% power. The main engine had stress fractures but would hold together for a few more jumps. "Martinez, how long can we fight once we reach Dominion Prime?" Elena asked. The chief engineer checked his readings. "Hard to say, Captain. If we push everything to maximum, maybe 6 hours, but the engine will fail after that." "Singh, what is our best approach route?" The navigator pulled up a star chart. 3 jump points, Captain. The first 2 systems have light defenses, but the third system, right before Dominion Prime, is heavily fortified. We will have to fight our way through." Elena studied the chart. The Hegemony had had 3 years to prepare their defenses. They knew humanity's remaining ships would try something desperate eventually. They were ready. "Weapon status?" Elena asked. Lieutenant Park, the youngest officer on the bridge, checked his console. "Torpedo tubes 1 and 3 are operational. Tube 2 has a loading problem. Energy weapons are working, but we only have power for sustained fire for about 20 minutes. Elena did the math in her head. 20 minutes of weapons fire against the most defended target in the galaxy. It was not enough. But it was all they had. "Captain," Torres said from the communications station, "I am receiving final messages from some of the other ships. Crew members saying goodbye to family." Elena felt a sharp pain in her chest. Most of the crew had no family left. The Hegemony had made sure of that. but some people still had friends or relatives hiding in the outer colonies. "Open a ship-wide channel," Elena said. Torres nodded. "Channel open, Captain." Elena took a deep breath. "This is Captain Vasquez speaking to all crew. In 20 minutes, we will begin our final mission. I want you to know that serving with you has been the greatest honor of my life. You are the finest people I have ever known." She paused, looking around the bridge. Her crew was listening intently. "We are going to attack Dominion Prime, knowing we will not return. We do this not for glory or revenge, but to give our people a chance. Somewhere out there, humans are hiding in caves and abandoned stations. They are waiting for hope. We are going to give them that hope." Elena stood up from her chair. "The hegemony thinks they have won. They think humanity is finished. They are about to learn that humans do not surrender. We do not give up. And we definitely do not die quietly." The bridge erupted in cheers. Elena felt tears in her eyes, but she did not let them fall. There would be time for tears later if there was a later. "All stations, prepare for jump," Elena ordered. "Singh, set course for the first waypoint. Martinez, bring the engines to full power. Park, charge all weapon systems." Around her, the crew moved with purpose. These people had faced death before. They knew their jobs. They would do them well until the very end. On the tactical display, Elena watched the other 11 ships moving into formation. The UES Determination led the group, with the smaller ships arranged in a defensive pattern. It looked impressive until you remembered that the entire human fleet now fit on one screen. "Jump in 60 seconds, Singh announced. Elena settled back into her captain's chair. In a few hours, they would reach the first enemy system. In a few days, they would attack Dominion Prime. And then the Defiance would join the long list of human ships that had died fighting the hegemony. But maybe their sacrifice would mean something. Maybe the scattered survivors would have time to escape. Maybe humanity would live to fight another day. "Jump in 10 seconds, Singh said. Elena gripped the arms of her chair. Around her, the bridge crew prepared for what they all knew would be their last mission. "Execute jump," Elena ordered. The stars disappeared in a flash of light. The UES Defiance and her sister ships began their final journey into the dark. The first system was almost empty. Elena watched the tactical screen as the Defiance and her 11 sister ships dropped out of hyperspace, near a small mining world. The hegemony had put only a few patrol ships here. They were not expecting an attack. 4 enemy vessels detected, Lieutenant Park reported from the weapons station. "Light cruisers, Saurian design. They are moving to intercept." Elena smiled grimly. The Saurians were one of the 7 species in the hegemony. Their ships were fast but not heavily armed. Perfect targets for desperate humans with nothing to lose. "All ships, attack formation Delta," Elena ordered. Torres transmitted the command to the other human vessels. The battle was over in minutes. The human ships had more experience and better tactics. They hit the Saurian patrol vessels with coordinated torpedo strikes before the aliens could call for help. 4 enemy ships became expanding clouds of debris, but Elena was not celebrating. "Singh, how long before reinforcements arrive?" The navigator checked his console. "Unknown, Captain. But we destroyed their communications array with the first strike. They cannot call for help now." Elena nodded. "That was good planning by Admiral Chen. Take out the communications first, then destroy the enemy ships. It would buy them time." "All ships move to the next jump point," Elena ordered. "We need to be gone before someone notices this system has gone quiet." The second system was harder. The hegemony had placed a full squadron here, 12 ships of various designs. Elena recognized Thulan battlecruisers, Nexari destroyers, and Vorthon heavy frigates. The aliens had learned to work together well. "Enemy squadron is moving to engage," Park reported. "They are maintaining formation and coordinating their approach." Elena studied the tactical display. The human ships were outnumbered but not outgunned. More importantly, they had surprise. The hegemony ships were not expecting such an aggressive attack so deep in their territory. "All ships, execute Plan Gamma," Elena ordered. Plan Gamma was something Admiral Chen had developed during the early days of the war. Instead of fighting a straight battle, the human ships would split into 2 groups. One group would attack head-on to draw enemy attention. The other group would circle around and hit the enemy from behind. Elena watched as the UES Determination led 6 ships in a direct assault on the hegemony squadron. Weapons fire lit up space as the 2 forces clashed. Meanwhile, the Defiance and 4 other ships used the battle as cover to move around the enemy formation. "Target the Thulan battlecruiser," Elena ordered. "All weapons fire on my mark." The Defiance and her companions attacked from the rear just as the enemy focused on Admiral Chen's group. Torpedo strikes and energy blasts tore into the unprepared alien ships. The Thulan battlecruiser took critical damage to its engines and began to drift, but the human ships were taking damage too. Elena watched as the UES Courageous took a direct hit from a Nexari plasma cannon. The brave little destroyer held together for a few seconds, then exploded in a brilliant flash. Courageous is gone, Torres reported quietly. Elena felt anger rise in her chest. The Courageous had been a good ship with a good crew. 43 people had just died, but she pushed the anger down. There would be time for grief later. The battle ended with the destruction of the Hegemony Squadron. But the cost was heavy. Besides the Courageous, 2 other human ships had taken serious damage. The UES Relentless was leaking atmosphere. The UES Steadfast had lost her main weapons. "This is Admiral Chen to all ships," came the transmission from the Determination. "We continue to the 3rd system. Damaged vessels will do their best to keep up." Elena looked at her tactical display. 9 ships now instead of 12. And they had not even reached the real battle yet. The 3rd system was a nightmare. The moment the human ships dropped out of hyperspace, proximity alarms screamed across every bridge. The Hegemony had turned this system into a fortress. Defensive platforms covered every approach route. Patrol fleets moved in coordinated patterns. Automated weapon arrays tracked the human ships immediately. 200 enemy contacts, Park reported, his voice tight with stress. Multiple ship types, all 7 Hegemony species represented. Elena felt her mouth go dry. 200 ships against 9. It was not a battle, it was a slaughter. "This is Admiral Chen," came the transmission. "All ships execute Plan Omega. We will punch through to Dominion Prime or die trying." Plan Omega was the last resort. All ships would attack at maximum speed, using their momentum to punch through the enemy formation. Some ships might make it to the other side. Most would not. The Determination led the charge. Elena watched as the massive dreadnought accelerated toward the enemy lines, her weapons firing continuously. Around her, the other human ships followed, adding their firepower to the assault. The Hegemony response was overwhelming. Plasma cannons, particle beams, and torpedo launchers focused on the human ships. The UES Relentless, already damaged from the previous battle, took a direct hit and vaporized instantly. The UES Retribution lasted longer, ramming a Vorthan cruiser before her reactor went critical. One by one, the human ships died. Elena watched her friends and comrades disappear from the tactical display. Each lost ship took dozens of good people with it. The UES Determination held the center of the formation, drawing most of the enemy fire. Elena could see the great ship taking terrible damage. Her armor was melting. Her weapons were failing. But she kept moving forward. "This is Admiral Chen to all remaining ships," came a final transmission. The Admiral's voice was calm despite the chaos around him. "Continue the mission. Make them remember us." The Determination exploded in a ball of fire that lit up half the system. Admiral Chen and his crew of 300 had chosen to die fighting rather than surrender. Elena looked at her tactical display. Only 1 ship remained active. "The UES Defiance alone against 200 enemy vessels, Captain," Torres said quietly. "We are receiving surrender demands from multiple Hegemony ships." Elena almost laughed. "Surrender? After coming this far? After watching her friends die?" "Martinez, damage report," Elena ordered. The chief engineer checked his systems. "Main engines are damaged but functional. Weapons are at 50%. Life support is stable. We can fight, Captain." "Singh, how far to Dominion Prime?" The navigator calculated quickly. 3 hours at sublight speed, Captain. The hyperdrive was damaged in the battle. Elena looked around her bridge. 18 people remained from the original crew of 850. They were battered, exhausted, and facing impossible odds, but they were still alive, and the Defiance was still flying. "Set course for Dominion Prime," Elena ordered. "Maximum speed," Torres looked surprised. "Captain, there are 200 enemy ships pursuing us." Elena smiled coldly. "Then we better move fast. Martinez, can you give me more speed?" The chief engineer grinned. "I can give you speed, Captain, but I cannot promise the engines will hold together." "Do it," Elena said, "and prepare the stealth systems. We are going to disappear." As the Defiance accelerated toward Dominion Prime, Elena made a decision that would haunt the Hegemony for months to come. Instead of making a direct attack on the planet, She would wage a different kind of war. The hegemony thought they had won. They thought one damaged human ship could not threaten their greatest stronghold. They were about to learn that the most dangerous enemy is one with nothing left to lose. The asteroid field around Dominion Prime was massive. Millions of rocks floating in space, some as small as pebbles, others as large as cities. The hegemony used them for mining operations. Elena was going to use them for something else entirely. "Take us into the field," Elena ordered. "Find us a hiding spot." Navigator Singh looked nervous. "Captain, flying through that field is extremely dangerous. One collision could destroy us." Elena studied the tactical display. Behind them, the hegemony fleet was spreading out to search for the Defiance. 200 ships looking for one, but the asteroid field was huge. If they could hide among the rocks, they might survive. "Do it," Elena said. "We did not come this far to die quietly." Singh guided the Defiance into the asteroid field with careful precision. The ship moved slowly between massive rocks, using her thrusters to avoid collisions. Behind them, the pursuing hegemony ship stopped at the edge of the field. They were afraid to follow. "Why are they not coming after us?" asked Lieutenant Park. Elena smiled. "Because they think like military commanders. They see the asteroid field as an obstacle. We see it as an opportunity." The Defiance found shelter inside a hollowed-out asteroid that had been mined decades earlier. Elena ordered all non-essential systems shut down to reduce their energy signature. The ship went dark and quiet. "Now what, Captain?" asked Chief Engineer Martinez. Elena looked at her crew. 18 people against an entire star system. It should have been impossible. But humans had done impossible things before. "Now we make them pay for every day they control this system," Elena said. "We are going to become their worst nightmare." The first attack came 3 days later. A hegemony mining convoy was moving slowly through the outer edge of the asteroid field. 6 cargo ships protected by 2 escort vessels. Easy targets for a ship that could appear and disappear like a ghost. Elena watched the convoy through the Defiance's sensors. The alien crews looked relaxed. They thought they were safe in their own territory. "Martinez, can you boost the stealth systems?" Elena asked. The chief engineer nodded. "I have been working on modifications using salvaged alien technology. We can stay hidden until we are almost on top of them. Singh, plot an intercept course. Park, prepare torpedoes." The Defiance emerged from hiding like a predator. The human ship appeared on the convoy's sensors only seconds before the attack. 2 torpedoes struck the lead cargo ship, tearing it apart. A third torpedo disabled one of the escorts. Before the aliens could react, the Defiance disappeared back into the asteroid field. The entire attack lasted less than 2 minutes. "Direct hits on 2 targets," Park reported. "The convoy is scattering." Elena felt satisfaction wash over her. It was a small victory, but it was a start. The hegemony would learn that humans could still bite. The attacks continued for weeks. The Defiance would appear without warning, strike at mining operations or supply convoys, then vanish again. Each attack was precisely planned and perfectly executed. The human crew learned to work together like parts of a machine. Martinez performed miracles with the ship's systems. He combined human engineering with alien technology, creating modifications that should not have worked but somehow did. The stealth systems became more effective. The weapons hit harder. The engines ran quieter. Singh became an expert at navigating the asteroid field. He memorized the location of every major rock and learned to use gravitational fields to mask their movements. The Defiance could appear anywhere in the system without warning. Park turned into a deadly accurate gunner. He studied hegemony ship designs and learned exactly where to hit them for maximum damage. His torpedo strikes rarely missed, but the constant fighting was taking its toll. The crew was exhausted from living on emergency rations and recycled air. Equipment broke down regularly. 3 crew members died from injuries that could have been treated in a proper medical facility. Elena watched her people slowly wearing away and felt the weight of command crushing her shoulders. Each decision could mean life or death for her crew. Each attack risked everything they had left, but they could not stop. Every day the Defiance remained active was another day that scattered human survivors had to escape the hegemony. Elena would not let her people's sacrifice be meaningless. The hegemony response grew more desperate as weeks turned to months. General Vexthon, the reptilian saurian who commanded the system's defenses, became obsessed with hunting down the single human ship that was making him look foolish. "They are sending larger patrols into the asteroid field," Torres reported during one of their planning sessions. 20 ships at a time, working in coordinated search patterns. Elena studied the tactical data. The hegemony was learning. They were becoming more careful, more methodical. Soon the asteroid field would not be safe anymore. We need to hit something big, Elena decided. Something that will make them angry enough to make mistakes. Martinez looked up from his engineering console. Captain, I have been monitoring their communications. There is a major supply depot on the fourth moon of Dominion Prime. It supplies all the mining operations in this system. Elena felt excitement rise in her chest. A supply depot would be heavily defended, but it would also be a valuable target. Destroying it would cripple hegemony operations for months. What kind of defenses? Elena asked. Orbital defense platforms, automated weapon systems, and at least one squadron of patrol ships, Martinez replied. But the depot itself is built into the moon's surface. If we could get inside the defensive perimeter... Elena nodded slowly. It was dangerous, but it was exactly the kind of bold strike that could turn one ship into a legend. Start planning the attack, Elena ordered. We are going to show the hegemony what happens when you corner a human. The attack on the supply depot required perfect timing and flawless execution. The Defiance would have to approach through the most heavily defended space in the system, penetrate multiple layers of automated defenses, and strike the target before the garrison could respond. Elena gathered her crew in the ship's small mess hall. 15 people now, all that remained from the battles and accidents of the past months. They looked tired and thin, but their eyes still burned with determination. This is our most dangerous mission yet, Elena told them. We will be attacking a hardened target with no chance of retreat. Anyone who wants to transfer to an escape pod can do so now. Nobody moved. Elena was not surprised. These people had chosen to die fighting months ago. They were not going to change their minds now. Very well, Elena said. We attack in 6 hours. Get some rest while you can. As the crew dispersed to their duties, Elena remained in the mess hall. She looked at the pictures on the wall. Images of Earth before the war. Photos of crew members who had died. Mementos of a civilization that might already be extinct. The Defiance had become more than a ship. It had become a symbol of human defiance, proof that the species would not surrender quietly. Elena intended to make sure that symbol burned brightly enough for the entire galaxy to see. The supply depot raid would either make them heroes or martyrs. Elena was prepared for either outcome, as long as the hegemony remembered that humans do not die quietly. The supply depot hung in space like a metal moon. Elena watched it through the Defiance's sensors as they approached from the shadow of Dominion Prime's fourth moon. The depot was huge, easily 10 kilometers across and bristling with defensive weapons. 15 orbital defense platforms, Lieutenant Park reported quietly. Automated plasma cannons covering all approach vectors. And I count at least 20 patrol ships moving in formation around the depot. Elena studied the tactical display. Getting close enough to attack would require flying through a storm of weapons fire. But Martinez had found something in the captured data that might help. Show me the construction blueprints again, Elena said. Martinez brought up the holographic display. The supply depot was built like a fortress, but every fortress had weak points. The blueprints showed power conduits, life support systems, and structural vulnerabilities that the builders had tried to hide. There, Elena pointed to a section near the depot's main docking bay, the primary power coupling for the defensive grid. If we can hit it with a precise strike, the entire defensive network will go down for at least 10 minutes, Martinez finished. But Captain, we would have to get within 2,000 meters to make that shot. The defensive platforms will tear us apart. Elena smiled grimly. Not if they cannot see us coming. The plan was insane, which made it perfectly human. The Defiance would use the gravitational field of the moon to slingshot around to the depot's blind spot. They would approach with all systems shut down, coasting on momentum alone. At the last second, they would power up and strike the power coupling before the defenses could respond. One shot, Elena told her crew as they prepared for the attack. We get one chance to make this work. Miss and we all die. Singh plotted the approach vector with mathematical precision. The ship would have to thread between 2 orbital platforms while avoiding the patrol routes of the guard ships. The margin for error was measured in meters. Martinez rigged the ship's systems for rapid startup. When the time came, the Defiance would have to go from dead space to full combat power in seconds. One system failure would mean destruction. Park loaded their last heavy torpedo with a special warhead. Instead of explosives, it carried an electromagnetic pulse device that would overload the depot's power grid. It was a one-shot weapon. If it missed, they had no backup plan. Beginning approach, Singh reported. All systems dark, running on momentum only. The Defiance drifted through space like a piece of debris. No engines, no weapons, no life support beyond emergency backup. The ship was cold and silent, invisible to most sensors. Elena watched the tactical display as they passed between the orbital platforms. The automated weapons tracked dozens of contacts, but they ignored the Defiance. To their sensors, the human ship looked like just another piece of space junk. Patrol ship passing 200 meters to starboard, Torres whispered. Elena held her breath. If the patrol ship's crew looked out their windows, they might spot the Defiance visually. But the alien crew was focused on their instruments, looking for active threats. The patrol ship moved past without stopping. Target in range, Park reported. 2,000 meters in closing. Elena felt sweat on her forehead despite the cold air. Everything depended on the next few seconds. Miss the target and 15 people would die for nothing. Hit it, and they might deal a serious blow to hegemony operations. Execute attack, Elena ordered. The Defiance came alive like a predator striking. Engines roared to full power. Weapons systems charged. Life support resumed normal operation. In the space of 3 seconds, the ship went from dead metal to a fully operational warship. Park fired the electromagnetic torpedo with perfect precision. The weapon streaked across space and struck the power coupling dead center. The explosion was small but devastating. Electrical systems overloaded throughout the depot. Lights went out. Defensive platforms went silent. The fortress became defenseless. Direct hit, Park shouted. Power grid is down. But the Defiance was not finished. Elena had planned for this moment carefully. With the defenses offline, they could attack the depot's real weak point, the fuel storage tanks that supplied the entire system. Target the fuel depot, Elena ordered. All remaining torpedoes. The Defiance unleashed everything she had. Torpedo after torpedo slammed into the depot's storage facilities. Each hit triggered secondary explosions as fuel tanks ruptured and ignited. The depot began to tear itself apart from the inside. Storage complex is going critical, Martinez reported. Chain reaction starting in the main fuel tanks. Elena watched as the supply depot died. Explosions raced through the structure like wildfire. Entire sections broke away and tumbled into space. The fortress that had taken years to build was destroying itself in minutes. But their victory came at a cost. The patrol ships had recovered from their surprise and were moving to attack. Weapons fire began to fill space around the Defiance. Multiple enemy contacts closing fast, Park reported. We are outnumbered 20-1. Elena felt the ship shake as plasma bolts struck their shields. The Defiance was tough, but she could not fight 20 ships at once. Singh, get us out of here, Elena ordered. Emergency acceleration. The Defiance fled toward the asteroid field with enemy ships in pursuit. But they had bought precious time. The destruction of the supply depot would cripple hegemony operations for months. Mining ships would run out of fuel. Patrol vessels would lack spare parts. The entire system would slowly grind to a halt. More importantly, they had captured something valuable during the raid. Martinez had managed to download data from the depot's computers before they destroyed it. Information about hegemony operations, ship movements, and defensive plans. Captain, Martinez said as they reached safety among the asteroids. I found something in the captured data. Construction blueprints for Dominion Prime's command nexus. Elena felt her heart skip a beat. The command nexus was their original target. The facility that coordinated all hegemony military operations. If they could find a way to destroy it, show me, Elena said. Martinez brought up the blueprints on the main display. The command nexus was a massive structure built deep underground on Dominion Prime. It was protected by layers of armor, energy shields, and defensive weapons. But like the supply depot, it had weaknesses. Here. Martinez pointed to a section of the blueprints. The nexus is powered by a network of fusion reactors. They all share a common cooling system. If that system could be overloaded at a specific frequency, Elena studied the data carefully. A cascade failure in the cooling system would cause all the reactors to overload simultaneously. The explosion would be enormous, big enough to destroy the entire command complex. What would we need to trigger this cascade failure? Elena asked. Martinez ran calculations on his console. A resonance torpedo programmed to the exact frequency, delivered directly to the cooling system control center. Elena felt excitement and dread in equal measure. They had found a way to complete their original mission, but delivering the attack would require a direct assault on the most heavily defended target in known space. How close would we have to get? Elena asked. Martinez checked the blueprints again. 500 meters from the Nexus itself. We would have to penetrate the planetary defense grid, land on the surface, and fight our way to the target. Elena looked around her bridge. 15 people against an entire planet's worth of defenses. It was impossible. It was insane. It was exactly the kind of mission that humans specialized in. Start preparing the resonance torpedo, Elena ordered. We are going to finish what we started. Over the following weeks, the crew of the Defiance worked feverishly to prepare for their final mission. Martinez built the resonance torpedo from spare parts and captured alien technology. Singh plotted approach routes through Dominion Prime's defensive grid. Park practiced target programming until he could hit a specific frequency generator blindfolded. Elena spent her time studying the tactical situation. Dominion Prime was defended by 3 separate fleet groups, hundreds of orbital platforms, and automated weapon systems that could track a single missile from orbit to surface. Getting close enough to deliver their weapon would require either incredible luck or perfect sacrifice. She chose sacrifice. The plan was simple in its brutality. The Defiance would approach Dominion Prime at maximum speed, using her momentum to penetrate as far into the defensive grid as possible. They would launch the resonance torpedo at close range, then hold position to ensure it reached the target. Nobody would survive. But if the mission succeeded, the command nexus would be destroyed and the Hegemony Alliance would collapse. Crew meeting in 10 minutes, Elena announced over the ship's intercom. All hands to the mess hall. As her people gathered, Elena looked at each face carefully. These 15 individuals had become more than crew members. They were family. They had shared hardship, danger, and loss together. Now they would share one final mission. We have found a way to destroy the command nexus, Elena began, but it will require a direct assault on Dominion Prime itself. None of us will survive. The crew listened in silence. Elena could see acceptance in their eyes. They had known this moment would come eventually. I will not order anyone to come with me, Elena continued. This is a volunteer mission. Dominion Prime hung in space like a jewel made of weapons and armor. Elena watched the planet grow larger on the main screen as the Defiance approached at maximum speed. 3 fleet groups moved to intercept them. Hundreds of orbital defense platforms tracked their approach. The most defended world in known space was ready for battle. Enemy contacts everywhere, Lieutenant Park reported. I count over 300 ships moving to engage us. Elena felt strangely calm. After months of running and hiding, it felt good to fly straight toward the enemy. No more stealth. No more tricks. Just one human ship against an empire. All stations report ready, called out Navigator Singh. His voice was steady despite what they all knew was coming. Elena looked around her bridge one last time. 15 people who had chosen to die fighting, rather than live as prisoners. They were tired and thin, wearing patched uniforms on a ship held together with spare parts and determination. But they were still here. They were still fighting. Martinez, bring weapons to full power, Elena ordered.
Singh, plot our final approach.
Park, prepare the resonance torpedo. The first enemy ships reached them as they entered the outer defense zone. Saurian interceptors moving fast and firing plasma cannons. The Defiance's shields flared as energy bolts struck home. Return fire, Elena commanded. The human ship's weapons spoke with controlled fury. Torpedo strikes shattered 2 interceptors. Energy beams crippled a third. But more enemies were coming. Many more. Vorthon heavy cruisers approaching from starboard, Park reported. Thulan battleships moving to block our path. Elena watched the tactical display fill with red contacts. The Hegemony was throwing everything they had at one human ship. She felt proud that they considered the Defiance such a threat. Emergency power to forward shields, Martinez called out. I can give you maybe 10 minutes of protection. The battle intensified as they pushed deeper into the defense grid. Weapons fire filled space around them. The Defiance shook under repeated impacts. Hull plates began to buckle. Systems started to fail, but the ship kept moving forward. Breach in Deck 7, Torres reported. Emergency force fields are holding. Main engine showing stress fractures, Martinez added. She will not hold together much longer. Elena gripped her command chair as another salvo of enemy fire struck their shields. Through the chaos of battle, she could see Dominion Prime growing larger. The planet's surface was covered with military installations, weapons platforms, and the massive structure of the command nexus. 10 minutes to target, Singh announced. Elena made a decision that would be remembered for generations. Instead of trying to fight all the enemy ships, she ordered the Defiance to dive straight through their formation. The human ship used her momentum and desperate courage to punch through 3 separate defense lines. Enemy weapons tore at their hull. The main deflector array exploded in a shower of sparks. Life support systems began to fail. But the Defiance kept flying toward her target. 5 minutes to target, Singh called out. We are through the orbital defenses. The command nexus was visible now, a sprawling complex of buildings and towers built into the planet's surface. It was surrounded by its own defensive systems, ground-based weapons, shield generators, and automated missile launchers. Target the shield generators first, Elena ordered. We need to clear a path for the torpedo. The Defiance dove through Dominion Prime's atmosphere like a falling star. Her hull glowed red-hot from atmospheric friction. Behind them, enemy ships followed in pursuit, their weapons still firing. Park targeted the Nexus's shield generators with surgical precision. Torpedo strikes brought down 3 generators. Energy beam attacks destroyed 2 more. The complex's shields flickered and failed. Shields are down, Park reported. I have a clear shot at the target. Elena looked at the tactical display one last time. The command nexus lay ahead unprotected. Behind them, 300 enemy ships were closing fast. Around them, ground-based weapons were tracking their approach. This was the moment everything had led to. 3 years of war, months of guerrilla fighting, the sacrifice of thousands of human lives. It all came down to 1 torpedo and 15 people who refused to surrender. Fire the resonance torpedo, Elena ordered. The special weapon launched from the Defiance's forward tube. It was not large or impressive looking, just a simple missile carrying a device that would resonate at a specific frequency, but it carried the hopes of every human survivor in the galaxy. Elena watched the torpedo's path on her screen. Ground-based defenses tried to intercept it, but Park had programmed the guidance system perfectly. The weapon weaved through enemy fire like it had a mind of its own. Torpedo impact in 10 seconds, Park announced. Elena felt the Defiance shudder as enemy fire found their main reactor. Warning alarms screamed across the bridge. The ship was dying around them, but she held together long enough for what mattered. The resonance torpedo struck the command nexus exactly where Martinez had calculated. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the frequency device activated, sending specific vibrations through the complex's cooling system. Deep underground, fusion reactors began to resonate in harmony. Safety systems tried to compensate, but the frequency was precisely tuned to overload their control circuits. One by one, the reactors lost containment. Reactor cascade beginning, Martinez reported with satisfaction. The entire complex is going critical. Elena smiled as enemy fire finally overwhelmed the Defiance's remaining shields. The ship's hull began to crack apart. But it did not matter anymore. They had delivered their weapon. They had completed their mission. It has been an honor serving with all of you, Elena said to her crew. Around her, 15 brave people faced death with dignity. They had fought the good fight. They had kept faith with their species. They had proven that humans do not surrender quietly. The Defiance exploded just as the command nexus tore itself apart. Ship and target died together in a flash of light visible from orbit. Captain Elena Vasquez and her crew joined the long list of humans who had chosen death before defeat. But their sacrifice shook the foundations of an empire. The destruction of the command nexus sent shockwaves through the Hegemony Alliance. Without centralized coordination, the 7 species began to operate independently. Old rivalries resurfaced. Territorial disputes erupted into open conflict. More importantly, word of the Defiance's final battle spread across the galaxy. Human survivors hiding in the outer systems heard about one ship that had held an entire star, system hostage for months before destroying the enemy's most important facility. The scattered remnants of humanity began to emerge from hiding. Colony ships that had fled during the invasion started to regroup. Research stations shared new weapons technology. Military units that had been in hiding formed new fleets. The war was far from over. It would continue for another decade before an exhausted hegemony finally agreed to negotiate. But historians would mark the destruction of Dominion Prime as the turning point, the moment when humanity's refusal to die quietly bought them the time they needed to survive. On New Earth, built on a world far from the ashes of the original, stands a simple memorial. A metal wall bearing the names of 18 crew members and the words they lived by. They refused to perish quietly. Children who never knew the old Earth read those names and learn about sacrifice, about courage, about the price of freedom. They learn that sometimes the greatest victories are won, not by those who live to see them, but by those who choose to die for something greater than themselves. The UES Defiance never returned from her final mission, but her echo still resonates through human space, a reminder that some ships become legends not because they survived, but because they chose how to die. In the end, that choice made all the difference. The hegemony had conquered human space, but they could not conquer the human spirit. They had destroyed the fleets, but they could not destroy the idea that freedom is worth any sacrifice. The Defiance and her crew had proven that humans do not surrender quietly. They fight until the last ship is gone. They resist until the last person falls. They remember their heroes and learn from their example. And when the next crisis comes, as it always does, there will be other ships ready to follow the Defiance's example. Other crews willing to fly into impossible odds. Other captains who understand that some things are worth dying for. The war for humanity's survival was won not by the ships that came home, but by the one ship that chose never to return. The UES Defiance had kept her promise in the most human way possible, by refusing to perish quietly.